Hey class, how you doing? I'm going to start the still life painting now, a little still life demo. The next assignment is a series of 4 still life paintings like always, on your canvas pad here. I'm going to want these in the instructions. I indicate that I want them to be monochromatic. So monochromatic means one color. Hopefully you know that. In the case of my demo, my quick demo, I keep emphasizing that. I try to keep these short so they're not super boring. Um, I would normally spend a lot more time developing the painting, but for the sake of the demo, I just want to kind of keep them quick, show you the essence of how to start and all that. So I chose for my color, I'm going to use blue, squirt out a blob of blue on the palette. You can also use white in this for this exercise. You don't have to rely on just transparencies to achieve lighter tones. So blue and white are what I'm going to be using. The other thing you have to do is use your number 12 brush, the big brush, okay? I don't want you to use your small brush yet for these. Stay away from the tiny brushes. One of the reasons is I think a smaller brush has too many associations to a pencil. And everybody's knows how to, or not, you don't know how to draw with a pencil, but that's kind of what you're familiar with. You have a lot of practice drawing with pencils, and I just kind of want to, from high school and everything, whether it's color pencils or just drawing with a pencil, doodling and things like that. But a brush is a very different tool. And I think when a person's learning how to paint, a lot of times they try to, if I just told you to start painting, the first thing you'd do, you'd grab the tiniest brush you have and start painting like you're doing a drawing, okay? So I want you to use the big brush so you get used to the idea of painting your subject. Now it's a little tricky because obviously it's difficult to get detail, so that also forces you to stay away from detail. It's real important to understand that detail is like the hubcaps on a car or the gutters on a house. It's just sort of the extra that's needed for the looks maybe, but the house is fine without the gutters and so is the car without the hubcaps. So my point is, you don't want to start with the detail. You want to start with the basic shapes and their relationships. Okay, that's really critically important in terms of learning how to paint. Start with the basic shapes and the relationships. Forget about detail. Just get detail out of your mind. Remember, one of the things I keep talking about is you're not a camera. You're a human being. So the most of your idea of what detail is based on technology in the photograph. You're not a machine, so you see things differently. So you're going to start with your number 12 brush. Start with very thin washes, and you just kind of want to block the forms in, focusing on the lights and the darks initially. Okay, so I'm just going to paint here quickly for a minute. There's this pumpkin. Now notice that I'm not outlining things. I do not want you to use a pencil. I do not want you to outline objects. I want you to, in a sense, paint from the inside out of the object, okay? Don't think of outline, think of the form. Focus on lights and darks initially. Eventually you'll be working on color, but for the sake of this, in the first exercise, I want you to focus on lights and darks. The darker areas are areas of heavier pigmentation since we're working monochromatically. Lighter areas are either you're using white or you're using the white of the canvas here. Okay, I'm going to paint the mug in. There's some shadows in between. And again, using the number 12 brush will frustrate you, but that's kind of part of the deal. I'm noticing that pay attention to the lights and darks, so the shadows. Now I'm working kind of with some really weird light here because of the lights on the tabletop or on the camera that I'm using, so I can't really see the still life super well. There's this propane tank kind of at the back of the mugs here. Think in terms of really basic shapes: cylinders, squares, rectangles, circles, ovals, spherical forms. There's the beer can. You can use your water to lift up paint for highlights if you need to. Right now, I'll start throwing some white in now for the lighter valued areas. So this mug is fairly light. And then the drapery coming down. And I want these initial studies to be pretty quick, okay? Now I'm contradicting myself because I told you to take your time on them, but I don't want you to labor intensely over these. We will be spending more time on still life painting, but these initial basic studies, I'd like you to just kind of get used to using this brush, used to the paint, and used to translating imagery. Darker areas have more pigment, so like that's a darker blue, the shadow inside the mug. The propane torch is darker down here. It's like some pumpkin things. And here's the lantern now. There's this little lantern in the back here is more of a lighter shape on a darker surface. I'm just gonna kind of block in the outline of it. Again, I'm moving quicker, so I want you to do these fairly quickly, but maybe not this quick. Okay, that's mine. That's basically the idea. Okay? Let me just do one thing here. Just keep them nice and fluid and free for these initial studies, okay? Mainly it's getting used to using this number 12 brush for the underpainting. I think I'd let this dry a bit now, and that's something you can do with yours is let them dry and then work back into them. So I think I'd let this dry and then start working in some darker tones. So that's how to start.